It was the Uber update in summer 2011 that first introduced the kill-counting strange version of weapons. And at the time, I didn't really think much of it. Except that when they were first added, it announced to the entire server anytime anybody strange ranked up, and you can imagine how quickly that became annoying. But they changed that, and I eventually did get a few of them. I think I traded some hats for, I believe it was a strange flare gun and a strange power jack. But then, I realized that these weapons would become all-consuming. I could not stop at just one or two, I would need to have them all. So I did the sensible thing, and I cast them into the fire. I don't know, I traded them away or something. Then, some years later, when I actually had money, I let them consume me. At this point, I've slowly but surely collected all of the stranges except for those absurdly expensive ones like the Gunslinger or the Kritzkrieg. But to this day, I've only actually leveled up 2 of those to HALE'S Own. For those of you not in the know, HALE'S Own is the highest rank most stranges can get, and for most things it's reached at 8,500 kills. It kind of feels like it should be 10,000, but whatever, it's 8,500. And for me, those 2 weapons are the minigun and the Tomislav. That's right, I'm a heavy main. There are dozens of us. But that did get me thinking, how long would it take to legitimately get every heavy weapon to HALE'S Own? Did I actually do it for this video? Well, you try getting your eviction notice to HALE'S Own, you tell me how that goes. But I do have a method for trying to figure it out, and I'll tell you about it right after this video sponsor. This video has been brought to you by Raycon. These open-ear earbuds let you stay connected to your surroundings while enjoying your favorite music, podcasts, or calls. Now I walk a lot, so I'm always wearing earbuds, but some of them really start to hurt my ears after a while. But with this open-ear style, I don't really get that ear fatigue. Plus they're secure and they're lightweight, so they stay in place and they're great for when I run too. And you got this convenient little carrying case and 36 hours of battery life, so you can't go wrong. And these things have the same audio quality as the big brands, but at a fraction of the price. And with over 3 million customers and a 30-day happiness guarantee, it sounds like you're pretty much guaranteed to be happy. Plus, this Black Friday, all Raycon audio products are up to 30% off site-wide. So it's a great time to pick some up for yourself or to get ahead of your Christmas shopping. But these deals aren't going to last long, so get on that. So you could click the link in the description or go to buyraycon.com/SquimJimOpen to save on Raycon audio products site-wide. Go check it out. So yeah, how long would it take to get every heavy weapon to the hypothetical 8,500 kills? And we're not talking about on a strange idle farming server. I mean, what's even the point? I never understood that. Isn't the whole point of stranges to track your own progress? I mean, why lie? I mean, who are you trying to impress? You gonna go ask your crush out by telling them you have a HALE'S Own shovel? Well, that actually probably would impress them, but only if it's legit. So, I wanted to get at least a rough estimate for how much time it would take to reach HALE'S Own for all of these weapons. Of course, it should go without saying there is no one time frame to do that in. It will literally be different for everyone, and that comes down to a ton of different factors. But to make an educated guess, I'm going to play with each of Heavy's weapons for 1 hour on official maps against real players and see where that gets us. Like I said, there's always going to be a bunch of different factors that play into this, but I think we could get a pretty good idea this way. And I decided for this video that I'm only going to be playing on Capture the Flag maps for the simple fact that it is probably the least objective-focused game mode. If all you want to do is focus on how many kills you can get, then Capture the Flag is generally the most consistent game mode for that. And realistically, having a pocket medic is going to significantly boost the number of kills you can get, but I didn't really want that. And I'll tell you why, because I wanted this gameplay to be as close to my normal gameplay as I possibly could get. And I don't usually have a medic pocketing me. Of course, if you're playing heavy, medics will tend to heal you, and you'll see that in this video, but I didn't want one attached to me at all times. In fact, to keep things from getting stale, I'm also going to be changing maps roughly every 15 minutes. Of course, sometimes you're going to get matches where your team is just way better than the other team, and sometimes your team is the one getting stomped. And I didn't want either of those scenarios to influence my scores too much. Again, I wanted this to feel as much like normal gameplay as possible. The goal is obviously to try as best I can with each weapon, but not to necessarily be as ultra, ruthlessly efficient as I could be. I'm not going to go around just pub stomping with 3 pocket medics, because I mean, where's the sport in that? But anyway, when it comes to Heavy's primary weapons, you're really just going to be playing like you would normally for the most part. And for the minigun, I racked up 133 kills in my hour playing with it. It probably doesn't come as a shock, but the minigun is probably one of the easiest weapons to reach HALE'S Own with. And honestly, all of Heavy's primaries are. But to my surprise, I actually got slightly more kills with the Natasha than the minigun in the same time frame. Now, keep in mind, this isn't to say the Natasha is better than the minigun, because it most certainly isn't. But functionality-wise, these 2 weapons are very similar, and even if the minigun is a better weapon overall, I am comfortable in saying that they would still probably take roughly the same time to reach 8,500 kills. Again, we are strictly talking about just getting kills here and not any other aspect of the weapon. which is actually why I was a little surprised that I got even more kills with the Brass Beast than either of them. The Brass Beast is definitely a more defensive-oriented weapon, so it does rely a little bit more on people coming to you, but I guess that didn't make as much of a difference as I would have thought. Though the Tomislav was the highest at 147, and the Heater was the lowest at 121. But these were all remarkably very similar scores. And like I said, there are a billion different factors at play that determine how many kills you can get in that time frame. But the fact that these were also similar does make me think we have a pretty good idea. And at these rates, the minigun would take 63.91 hours, the Natasha 62.04, the Brass Beast 58.22, the Tomislav 57.82, and the Hulong Heater 70.25. To put that in perspective, the minigun would take about 2.67 days. So if you never slept and all you did was play heavy in Team Fortress 2, you could get your Hail Zone minigun in less than 3 days. In fact, at those rates, you could do that with any of these guns. But if we're being more realistic, if you played TF2 for about 2 hours a day, every day, and only played heavy, you could get your minigun to Hail Zone in about 31.96 days. Let's just round it up to 32 days, and that's a little bit over a month. Which is actually slightly faster than I would have expected. But you would have to be very committed to playing only one class with only one weapon. You could do it though. You could also play more than 2 hours, but me personally, I can only really play a game for 2 hours at a time before I get bored. So I think 2 hours is generally a good place to put it. And at the rate of 2 hours per day, these estimates range from about 29 days to 35. It is always going to vary a little bit, but I am pretty comfortable in saying that these weapons could all reach Hail Zone within 29 to 35 days. I think that's very doable if you really want to. Now, for heavy secondaries, I don't actually have a strange sandwich, and strange versions of the second banana and buffalo steak unfortunately don't exist. But we'll pretend they do. And you could also just totally cheese consumable items. Those are really the only weapons that I think it's fair. Because if you go into a strange farming server for your minigun, you're obviously going to get an unrealistic amount of kills that you could never possibly get in an actual match. But there is nothing stopping you from just sitting in spawn and eating your sandwich over and over and over in a real game. You might get kicked, but you can still definitely do it. In fact, I'm sure you can even do it more efficiently than I'm doing it here. You could probably just start the eating taunt, set a bind to change classes or loadout or something, and then instantly respawn and then do it again over and over and over. But I figure, if I'm going to do it like this, I might as well eat the whole thing. And if you did this for a full 60 minutes, you could eat up to 816 Dalico's bars in an hour. Or sandwiches, or second bananas, or steaks, they're all the same. And that is a pretty big chocolate bar. If that bite was like 100 calories, then Heavy's eating 81,600 calories worth of chocolate in an hour. Maybe he should try a salad. And yeah, this would put things like the Dalico's bar and the sandwich as by far the easiest weapons to reach Hail Zone with in a semi-normal way. Some of you might disagree with the method for this, but I think this is one that is fair to do in a cheesy way and still have it count. My criteria is really just, if you could do it in a normal match against real players, then it's fine. And at those rates, you could get your food to Hail Zone in just 10 hours and 24 minutes, or a little over 5 days at 2 hours per day. Unfortunately, the shotguns for Heavy are not quite as efficient as the sandwich at leveling up. And yeah, the shotgun, family business, and panic attack are also very functionally similar weapons. And each of the shotguns also ended up getting very similar scores. 63 for stock, 69 for the family business, and 76 for the panic attack. Those come out to 134.9 hours, 123.19 hours, and 111.84 hours. And at a rate of 2 hours per day, I think for each of those I would be comfortable in saying that you could definitely do it between 56 and 67 days. I'm sure the number of days required for each would be pretty close. Yeah, there's really not a whole lot to say about the shotguns, but luckily there is a lot to say about Heavy's melee weapons, because playing melee Heavy kinda sucks. It's fun, but yeah, it sucks. And I just want to say there is no rule about only using your melee weapon and nothing else. If there's a sentry in the way, I can very much take out my minigun and destroy it. But I do want most, if not all of my kills in that time frame to be from my melee weapon. And to my surprise, I did better with the fists than I did with any of the shotguns. And I don't really know why. Either I am a god at melee Heavy, or I just can't aim with the shotgun. And both of those are equally plausible. But when you are going around with just your fists out, you do have the benefit of people not really taking you very seriously. Especially if you're locked in with the buffalo steak. You're kind of just seen as a bit of a joke. Someone might be able to easily kill you, but they want to make things interesting, so they pull out their own melee. And if you're playing in casual servers, you do have random crits on your side, where melee weapons have a much higher crit chance than things like the shotgun. And to be honest, I do think the random crits are doing a lot of heavy lifting here. If you're able to make contact with someone, there's a pretty good chance they're going to die in one hit, and that's not usually the case with the shotgun. But in that hour's time, I was able to get 87 kills with the fists, which was a surprise to me. If I was somehow able to keep that up, I would be able to get Hail Zone fists in under 100 hours. but I really don't think that's likely. In fact, I think the Killing Gloves of Boxing kinda showed that it was probably a fluke, despite the Killing Gloves of Boxing being more or less an upgrade over the fists. I mean, the KGB are really fun, but I wasn't going on big chain-punching kill streaks like I had hoped. I would get a few kills each life, but I wasn't really getting the opportunity to use those 5 seconds of crits. Ultimately, I only came out with 78 kills for the KGB, which wasn't as many as I had hoped for after doing pretty well with the fists. But again, it was actually higher than the shotguns, and I can't really explain that. And then, I was actually kind of excited to use the gloves running urgently for this video, because ever since they removed the damage penalty in Jungle Inferno, I do find myself using them offensively every so often. It's not good offensively, but it does catch people off guard, and the speed increase definitely helps. And even then, Heavy's version of moving fast is really just everybody else's normal speed, so it really doesn't help all that much for catching up with people. But you can alleviate the health loss a little bit with the Daleko's bar, which does have some wacky properties with the gloves running urgently. It can sometimes leave you stuck with a higher health than you're supposed to have, which of course does come in handy. But it is still pretty hard to kill people with this weapon. I did get this really cool one where I rode another Heavy's minigun knockback and punched this pyro from behind, so that was pretty funny. And I don't need to have the gloves out at all times, but when you're playing melee Heavy, you'll find that the element of surprise is a very big factor when it comes to getting kills. It is generally better to have your melee out and ready when you turn the corner or someone else does. But the thing is, if you don't get that kill in 1 or 2 hits, you're going to be mowed down almost instantly in return. But either way, I ended the Gloves of Running Urgently's hour with just 46 kills, which is the lowest so far. And at that rate, it would require 184.78 hours to reach HALE'S Zone, or 92.39 days at 2 hours per day. The Fist of Steel did fare a bit better, with 65 kills per hour, and with the Fist of Steel, I found that I almost always got at least 1 kill per life. It's kind of like I said, how when playing melee Heavy, you're very reliant on surprise and catching people coming around corners. And with the Fist of Steel, you are able to take that extra damage that someone might deal to you around the corner, and you are able to usually get 1 kill out of that. At least once. And it's funny, because when you're using the Fist of Steel as a utility weapon, the melee vulnerability very rarely comes into play. You're usually going to have them out when everyone else is at a distance. But when you're using them as an actual melee weapon, other people do not hesitate to take out theirs. And they will usually win that melee duel. Not always, because you do have a decent chance with random crits, but it definitely doesn't favor you. And if there's a demo knight on the other team, which a lot of the time there is, you gotta do everything you can to avoid them. And it is the melee vulnerability on the Fist of Steel that did make me tend to favor the Daleko's bar over the Buffalo Stake for this one. You do still resist more range damage than you take from the Stake's vulnerability, but obviously it does increase your melee damage even further. But the biggest downside is that you can't switch off of it, which is really bad for the Fist of Steel. But overall, I did find the Fist of Steel to be very consistent. I didn't go on any crazy kill streaks, but I did consistently get kills. And then I did want to skip ahead a little bit to the Holiday Punch, which actually does have its own unique way of ranking up. Instead of leveling up based on kills, it does it for Tickle Fights 1, which just means how many times you can make the target laugh. It'll count how many times you hit someone from behind or hit them with a crit. But this does mean you could just farm a bunch of points off of getting one person to laugh and then repeatedly punching them in the back after that. Each one of these hits will count, and you want to make sure you don't kill them, because that doesn't count. You just want to watch them suffer. And this would definitely make the Holiday Punch pretty easy to get points with. And overall it was, but I don't know, people were really out for blood that night. They did not want me tickling them. Though I did manage to win 130 tickle fights in that hour. But this is a case where I am pretty positive in the right scenario you could definitely get a lot more. But 130 ain't bad. Then the Warrior Spirit. Oh boy. That's a weapon. It sure is a weapon. In fact, it is the strongest melee weapon in terms of raw power. It deals 85 damage. Then of course, for some reason, it also has the highest normal vulnerability in the game. Like the Warrior Spirit would still be pretty bad with 20% vulnerability, but why 30%? I don't know, I don't understand that. The health on kill is nice, I guess, but it doesn't really make up for the increased damage you're going to take. And also, your increased damage is good, but it doesn't really break very many damage thresholds. Like, I guess it does allow you to hypothetically 2-hit kill a medic, or 1-hit kill a soldier with a crit, but that's kinda it. And good luck catching up to them. Yeah, and if you're using it with the Buffalo Stake, that vulnerability stacks to 56%, which is brutal. But I mean, this guy was just so impressed that I was using these two together that he killed himself. But towards the end of my time with the Warrior Spirit, I did decide to try with the Daleko's bar, which I mean, maybe was slightly better, I don't really know. The damage bonus on its own doesn't really come anywhere close to making it for the downside, especially when most of Heavy's other melee weapons already have a high chance to instant kill most classes with a random crit anyway. Plus it pairs terribly with the weapon that it's supposed to pair with. It's all bad. But I was able to get 56 kills in an hour, which I guess isn't terrible. But think of it like this. There are 3 heavy melee weapons made purely for combat. The fists, because that's all they can do, the killing gloves of boxing, and the warrior spirit. The warrior spirit did significantly worse than either of those, and even did worse than the fists of steel, which are mainly a utility weapon. In fact, it only got 10 more kills than the gloves of running urgently, which are entirely just a utility weapon. Yeah, the warrior spirit is just, not good. It's not good. But even then, it's still arguably not the worst. It's kind of funny, because the eviction notice started as one of those purely combat-focused weapons. All it was just faster swinging speed for less damage. And it swings really fast. It swings faster than the bat. But it also deals less damage than the bat. It deals 25% less damage than the bat, actually. So it's not good for combat. They later on added the speed boost on hit, which is actually a pretty great upside for a heavy melee weapon. It's just kind of a shame that it's on this one. And then that health drain downside just does not fit the eviction notice. The gloves of running urgently have a much bigger speed boost, but also the gloves of running urgently regenerate their health faster. The eviction notice drains your health at a rate of 5 per second, but it also regenerates at that rate. So it could take up to 40 seconds to get your health back to normal if you have the eviction notice out for long enough, but from a minimum health of 100, it only takes the gloves of running urgently 20 seconds. So the whole thing is just a mess. I don't think they ever had a real vision for the eviction notice. Like, it's trying to both be a combat melee weapon and a utility melee weapon, and its current version is terrible at both. And unsurprisingly, I was doing very badly with it. If you're going to try this, you're going to want to do it with the Dalico's bar, which does help you get around the health loss. The eviction notice also pairs terribly with the stake, because the stake caps your speed. So you don't get anything out of those on-hit speed boosts if you use them together, which is pretty lame. You're pretty fast with those speed boosts, but you're still not as fast as a scout, and you're still dealing less damage than the scout would. So, yeah. Kills were pretty few and far between, so I would begin to savor each one. And then it started getting kind of fun. I'd begin to hone my brass-knuckling abilities. And somehow, by some miracle, I managed to get a higher kill streak with the eviction notice than I did with any other heavy melee. It did involve committing this war crime right here, but I saw the opportunity and I had to take it. Overall, I got a 14 kill streak with just the eviction notice. No medics or nothing. And to my surprise, that one life helped me to get a total of 46 kills in that hour, which is actually tied with the gloves of running urgently. Though overall I would say it is much harder to do with the eviction notice. But it can actually be pretty satisfying to get those kills. I mean, it's fun. In fact, maybe I'll make it my life's goal to get a HALE'S own eviction notice. That'd be worth it, right? If I kept up that rate, it would only take me 3 months if I played for 2 hours a day. It is technically possible. I wonder if anybody's ever legitimately done it. I wonder if anybody's gotten every heavy weapon to HALE'S own. If I did it at the rates I played for this video, it would take me roughly 1,627 hours and 8 minutes. That would be 67.8 days of non-stop playing, or 813.57 days if I played for 2 hours per day. And that would be 2 years and 84 days. So I think you could see why I couldn't actually do it for this video. That number does definitely put some things into perspective. Over 2 years just to change the name of your weapons, and for what? Bragging rights? Think of it, all that wasted time. It'll be worth it. But hey, thanks for watching. This is a video idea that I kind of wanted to do for a while. In fact, I started recording it like months ago. But it did end up being a lot of fun, and if you are interested, I will probably do this for every class. In fact, even if you aren't interested, I'll probably do it anyway. But yeah, thanks for watching. And of course, a big thanks to my patrons like Varric, Captain Forex, Eggox, Colonel, Probably Vinegar, Copernicus, Kelso the Pirate, Pilsman's Fox, Some Crazy Idiot, Ozond, Evil Toaster, Salt God, Lavi, Taupe, Time Consuming, Man344, Nolan46, and Melody G.